My name is Emily Hargrove. I'm 36 years old, born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina, the kind of town where people smile with their teeth but wait till you turn your back to bear them. I live in a cedar-sided house on the edge of Biltmore Forest, where the trees always whisper like they know secrets you'll never catch. I teach English at the local high school, and I run a part-time ceramic studio out of my garage. My days hum with a rhythm I understand: lesson planning, wiping the clay from my nails before dinner, hiking the trails behind my backyard when the woods aren't too heavy with silence. After my divorce 2 years ago, I stopped trying to force the world to make sense. I built my life like I build clay on the wheel, slow, deliberate, shaped by pressure. I don't have children. That's the shadow I don't talk about. Some nights when the window panes rattle with wind and the old floorboards pop under their own weight, I wonder if I made the choices or if they were made for me. There's a picture in my dresser drawer, a blurry sonogram, ink faded along the edges. I never framed it. I never needed the daily reminder. My body chose its own silence, but I found purpose in my students. Especially the quiet ones. The awkward, wide-eyed ones who don't know it yet, but they're just waiting to bloom. I watch for them. I make room for them. Last fall, when the district announced we'd be hosting international exchange students again, I volunteered. I'd done it once before, years ago, and it left a mark on me. This time, the placement agency paired me with a 17-year-old girl from Japan, Eiko. From the moment she stepped through my door, carrying her little suitcase with both hands like it held more than just clothes, I knew she was special. She had this light. Not loud or showy, but soft and golden and real. She helped me in the kitchen without asking, spoke in careful English, and laughed like her heart was wide open. She reminded me of who I used to be before life filled the cracks with regret. But then the school changed the plan. There had been a mistake in placement, too many students, not enough host homes. They asked me to wait a few weeks, said another family on the other side of town would take her. The Davis family, a name sweet as syrup, but I knew them. Catherine Davis ran the parent-teacher committee like a tight ship of whispers and glances. Her husband, Brent, coached varsity football. Their daughter, Sadie, strutted down the school halls like they were paved for her. I'd seen Catherine at fundraisers, parties, the grocery store, sipping from her reusable coffee cup, always watching, always judging. Her words came wrapped in honey, but her eyes cut straight to the bone. I didn't like the thought of Eiko under that roof, but I didn't protest. I smiled, nodded, and handed the girl over like a fragile package I wasn't allowed to protect anymore. Weeks passed. I barely saw Eiko at school. She stopped coming by my classroom like she used to. Her face dulled. Her smile got smaller. Something inside my ribs tightened every time I caught a glimpse of her shuffling beside Sadie in the hallway, head down, hands clutched around her books. Friday afternoon, she showed up on my porch again. I opened the door and she folded into my arms like someone folding down in prayer. She was shaking. I pulled her inside, made tea, sat her at the table where the wood had been worn soft by time and elbows and stories. "I don't want to go back," she said, her voice like crushed silk. I didn't push. I let the silence moan through the kettle as it boiled. After a few sips, the words spilled out, quiet, broken, angry in places. Catherine Davis had rifled through her things the second day she arrived. Little items went missing. A charm from her grandmother. Socks. A sealed box of chocolates she had brought from Kyoto for her family back home. When she asked, they laughed, called her forgetful. Catherine told her, "You're imagining things, sweetie. Maybe things just get lost in translation." The next morning, someone slid empty chocolate wrappers under her door. Each day, another wrapper. Her voice cracked when she told me, "They're making me feel invisible and stupid, but I know they're doing it on purpose." I reached across the table and took her hands. They were ice cold, trembling against my skin. "You don't deserve that, none of it." My father's voice came into my head just then, gravelly and gruff the way it got after too many cigars. "A slow knife cuts the deepest, Em. Let Em think they've got the upper hand. Then twist." That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my back porch, wrapped in a wool blanket, watching the trees sway like drunk sentinels. Eiko's confession echoed in every gust of wind. People like Catherine Davis didn't need to scream to abuse you. They wielded cruelty like perfume, subtle, lingering, impossible to scrub off. I thought about what I'd taught my students for years. Use your voice. Stand up for yourself. But what did that look like in a world where power wore pearls and smiled in church pews? That was when something settled in me, not a flash of rage, not tears. Stillness. Sharp, cold stillness. I wouldn't play quietly anymore. I wasn't a child begging for space or a woman apologizing for her pain. Catherine Davis had picked the wrong girl to bully, and she had no idea how deeply I listened, or how far I would go to protect what mattered to me. The rules had changed the moment she chose to make a child feel small. Let them laugh now. Let them enjoy their little game. I'm not the kind who strikes first, but I promise I always finish it. By the time the fourth empty chocolate wrapper slid under Rika's door, I knew the joke had gone far enough. Watching the host family's youngest daughter scurry back and forth to the bathroom the next day gave us both a fleeting, guilty satisfaction, but that's all it was. Fleeting. Rika smiled through it, said she felt a little stronger, like she'd reclaimed something stolen, but something in her eyes told me otherwise. There was still fear behind the laughter. She didn't stay with them again after that weekend. My parents insisted she stay with us for a few days to decompress. At first, we called it a short break, just to let her relax. But days turned into a week, and when I asked if she was ready to go back, she looked away and said softly, "I don't think I can." I sat beside her on the edge of my bed, brushing a wrinkle from my bedsheet just to keep my hands busy. "What do you mean?" I asked. "I feel like I'm being watched all the time, even when I sleep." They laugh at me, take things when I'm not looking, even the father, Mr. Canning. He stared at me once in the kitchen, didn't blink, just stood there, and smiled. I swallowed hard. It felt like something sharp caught in my throat. "You need to tell the program coordinator," I said. "This isn't just being uncomfortable anymore. This is something else." She hesitated. "I already tried. They said I must have misunderstood, that the Cannings are a trusted family, done this for years." She patted my hand and told me to try to adjust better. I should have known then it wouldn't be easy to pull her out. Reputation meant everything in towns like ours. Small, fake smiles stretched across every face. And the Cannings, they were royalty among the local parent scene. Owned the hardware store, sponsored the school carnival, hosted the summer barbecue with mismatched lawn chairs for half the town to attend. I thought I could fix this, or at least uncover the truth. So I started with small things. I asked around casually at first. "Ever notice anything weird about the Cannings?" I asked Kelsey during lunch one day. She tilted her head, squinting. "Weird how? Like creepy?" "Yeah, just off," she laughed. "You mean their weird Jesus paintings? Or how Mrs. Canning always smells like chicken stock?" "No, like maybe they treat people badly." Kelsey lowered her voice and leaned closer. "I mean, I heard stories. Their first exchange student left early, right? And the girl they had last year barely spoke to anyone. That was the first crack in the shell. I urged Rika to write everything down, each incident. I helped her organize it all, dates, times, what went missing, how they reacted. My mom even suggested we talk to a lawyer friend of hers, just to scare them a little. But when we finally marched into the school counselor's office with a binder full of neatly typed pages and my mother waiting outside, Ms. Aldridge barely skimmed it. "This is troubling," she said, her tone clipped. "But you need to understand, taking this kind of action will cause serious consequences for the Cannings. Are you sure this isn't just a cultural miscommunication? Emotions can be amplified in unfamiliar environments." Rika sat beside me silent, her face pale and mouth drawn like a tight thread. I clenched my fists. Her tone changed. She leaned forward, locking eyes with me. "You're a smart girl, Ada. But sometimes smart girls get too involved. Let's not forget, Rika's here on a scholarship. These kinds of accusations could complicate that." I froze. That wasn't a warning, it was a threat. Later that night, I paced my room, hot with rage. My skin buzzed like static. I couldn't believe it. No one cared. No one. "They're going to crush us, Rika," I said, my voice low and bitter. "They'll cover it up. Smile all the way through it like they always do." She looked up from the corner of my bed, hugging one of my old sweatshirts. "Then we do something they can't cover." Her voice didn't shake. "We show everyone what they're really like." I nodded, unsure of what exactly we meant, but it felt like a promise. The next move came slow, through broken trust and late-night whispers. Rika returned to the Cannings, home during the day under the pretense of collecting her things. I went with her like I had any right to step inside. Mrs. Canning greeted us in the doorway with her too-white smile. "Oh, Rika, we've missed you. I hope the Robertson house isn't too boring. You know we still consider you family." Rika gave her a stiff bow. "I will only take what belongs to me." Upstairs, her room smelled like air freshener and something faintly rotten underneath. We found her closet rearranged. Some of her bags were unzipped, others missing entirely. Her small photo album, the one with her family's letters tucked inside, had vanished. "They took my letters," she whispered. Why would they do that?" I didn't know what to say. I just helped her gather what was left. Coming down the stairs, Mr. Canning blocked the hallway. "Don't forget your manners, girls," he said, voice like syrup over a flame. "In this house, guests show gratitude." Rika didn't answer. She stepped around him, her shoulders squared but her knuckles white. After that day, everything got worse. They twisted the story first, told the coordinator we were manipulating Rika, trying to convince her she'd been abused so she could transfer. Mr. Canning even called my parents to accuse them of defamation, said I was obsessed with Rika, trying to drive a wedge between her and the family. The school demanded a mediation. Rika wasn't allowed to speak during most of it. The Cannings cried. Nobody else did. I tried to defend her. Spoke clearly, lined up every detail we'd gathered, every inconsistency. But the more I talked, the more they looked at me like I was spinning stories. Afterward, even some of our classmates started acting different. She's making it all up, I overheard someone whisper. I bet Ada's just jealous. Kelsey stopped talking to me altogether. By midweek, my locker was covered in scribbled notes. Liar, stupid bitch, go back to your pet project. I found Rika curled up in my bed, sobbing quietly into the pillow. They hate me, she mumbled. I want to go home. I sat beside her, wrapped my arms around her trembling back. Her skin felt cold, like the last warmth had drained from her. You didn't do anything wrong, I said, but no one believes me. That night I stared at the ceiling until the dark turned blue again. I wondered if maybe we really had lost. The Cannings walked through town like nothing happened. Everyone smiled at them. And we were invisible. Some time before dawn, I crept to the bathroom and looked into the mirror. For a long time, I didn't recognize the girl staring back. My voice was smaller than I remembered. My eyes tired, bloodshot. What if we were wrong? What if I was ruining her life trying to fix something unfixable? What if this was the cost of caring too much? That question echoed in my chest as I returned to bed, pulled the blankets over both of us, and tried to protect her with useless arms. By Friday, we got the call we'd been dreading. Rika's scholarship had been reevaluated. She'd be transferred to a different family 2 counties away. They framed it like a mercy. She cried for hours. I just sat still, hollow and burning. We lost. I sat alone on the back porch steps of our old farmhouse, the wood still damp from a morning rain. My bare feet sank into the cool earth, toes curling into the mud like I could hide from everything if I just dug deep enough. The air smelled like wet hay and honeysuckle, but all I could taste was failure. The silence pressed on me, heavy, complete, not peaceful, not the kind that soothes. No, this kind of quiet echoed shame. Naoko had left 2 nights ago. She didn't say goodbye, not with words at least. She stood in the hallway with her coat on and eyes that didn't cry anymore, just wide, dark, and still. My mother hugged her. My dad offered to drive her to the airport. She asked me nothing. I opened my mouth to speak. Didn't find a single word I could offer that wouldn't burn coming out. What good had my protection done? A prank. That's what it had amounted to. A shitty, childish prank. Some chocolate, some diarrhea, and a few giggles behind that girl's back while Naoko packed her last few nights with pretend courage. It didn't get her dignity back. It didn't stop that family from tearing her down, piece by piece. And it sure didn't make her believe the world was safe again. I thought I had fixed it. That smug, twisted pride I'd felt when Naoko told me the girl couldn't stop running to the bathroom, it turned sour in my gut the longer I sat with it. I wanted revenge like it was justice, but it was. It was a joke in a costume. The moon drifted in behind the clouds, and for a long time I just watched it. My skin felt cold, but I didn't move. Then I remembered the card. Naoko had left it on the kitchen counter. A pale blue envelope with a watercolor cherry blossom painted in the corner. Her handwriting inside, delicate, careful. Thank you for giving me back a small piece of myself. I hope one day I can return the kindness. Underneath, she tucked a copy of a letter she wrote to the exchange program coordinator. The paper was thin, almost translucent in the porch light. In perfect English, she detailed everything. The missing items, the mocking, the wrappers under her door, the exhaustion from walking on eggshells, the laughter when she tried to speak up. And she named them, every single one of them. But she'd written the ending differently. I do not want them punished. I want them seen, clearly, truthfully. I refuse to carry their shame into my future, but I will not lie for them anymore. My breath caught in my chest like I'd been hit. Naoko hadn't run away. She'd stepped forward, and I'd been too blind, too angry to see what strength really looked like. Something cracked inside me, not broken, reshaped, so I started digging. I drove into town the next day, parked outside the public library. It smelled like old paper and lemon cleaner. I pulled every book and article I could find on student exchange programs, host family requirements, oversight bodies, back channels. I called lines people forgot existed. I asked questions no one expected from a high school senior. And when I looked up the Ashton host family, Naoko's assigned guardians, I found something tucked deep in a newsletter. Donation. $5,000 a year, recurring, from an anonymous benefactor. I knew that name. The dad, Richard Ashton. Local contractor. County Golf League darling. Old money, loud opinions. I called the coordinator from the letter Nayako had written. Miss Darnell, yeah, she left on Saturday, the woman's voice chirped at the other end. Lovely student. Said she had a family emergency back home. Did she tell you about the Ashtons? A pause. No, nothing of concern. She was quiet toward the end, but that happens. Homesickness. They were robbing her, I said, mocking her, gaslighting her. You know what that means? Another pause. Well, now I can't disclose details about host families. You don't have to, I said. I've already drafted a report. I'll include it with copies of receipts for the items she bought, ones the Ashtons stole. I've got dated photos, her original letter, and written statements from my parents. So unless you want the school board to read about how your anonymous donors get a free pass to mistreat underage students, I suggest you take this seriously. The silence didn't last long that time. We'll launch an internal review immediately. Good, I said, voice calm, steady, because you let it happen, and I'm not letting it happen again. I hung up before she could reply. That night I pulled out the old camera from the hall closet. The lens cap was dusty, the plastic cool against my fingers. I loaded new batteries, cleaned the lens, and set it down on my desk like it was a sword I'd forgotten how to wield. My project, a student video exposé, I would collect testimonies. Not just Nayako's, but others. Foreign exchange kids past and present. Quiet voices with stories people ignore. I'd gather them all. Build it honest, raw, real, not rage, I whispered to myself. Truth. Then I made a list, 12 names, 4 schools, 1 finale. I would shine a light on the Ashtons so bright they'd never crawl back into the shadows again. That night I stood in front of the mirror, brushed the hair back from my face, and stared into the eyes looking back at me. No more jokes. No more pretending that small justice was enough. I had a voice. I had Nayako's words. I had the truth. And I wasn't afraid anymore. The night before everything changed, the wind blew hard against the corners of our house. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the plan I had printed on a single sheet of paper. Taka's handwriting covered the margins, tiny notes, careful edits, hesitations, and hopes tucked between each line. It was quiet in the house except for the occasional creak of wood settling. Even the dog stayed silent. I folded the paper and slipped it into my coat. Tomorrow wasn't going to be about revenge anymore. I didn't want to hurt them. I wanted the truth to burn its way through the silence they had built like armor. I picked up my phone and called Taka. Are you sure you're ready for this? I asked. There was a long pause. Yes, she said, her voice steady for the first time in weeks. They don't get to rewrite my story. Not anymore. The next morning, the world gave us gray skies and the kind of cold that cuts through wool. It fit. Taka waited outside her host family's house in her uniform, hair pulled back, backpack slung over her shoulder like it was any other school day. But her eyes burned. We had chosen the venue carefully, the school auditorium. It was parent feedback night. Half the town would be there. Teachers, students, families, everyone who mattered, including the Wexlers. The entire host family, front row, easy smiles, button-down shirts, the perfect image of civic virtue. I walked up the center aisle while Taka waited in the wings. My heart hammered against my ribs. I carried the USB drive like it was a loaded weapon. In a way, it was. Mr. Denton, the headmaster, adjusted the microphone. Looks like we're ready for our student presentation, he said, smiling in his typical bland way. A few words from our favorite guest from abroad. I gave him a polite nod and plugged in the drive. The screen lit up behind me. Photos faded in, pictures Taka had taken over the months. Her suitcase, the diary page where she had listed every missing item. The same photos she'd shown me late that one night, tears streaking her face. There was no commentary, just soft piano music and the truth laid bare. Then came the video. Taka had installed a small camera in her bedroom. The footage showed Mrs. Wexler slipping in while Taka was at school, opening her drawers and removing small packets. It showed Mr. Wexler unzipping her luggage. It even caught their daughter laughing as she tossed empty wrappers under the door. Gasps broke out across the auditorium. I heard someone whisper, "That's theft," and another murmur, "How long has this been happening?" Then, Taka stepped up beside me. She didn't tremble. "I came here thinking I'd find a second family," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. But instead, I found people who laughed at my pain. People who stole pieces of my life when I was too far from home to fight back. The Wexlers stiffened. Mrs. Wexler stood suddenly. "This is slander. That's edited, it's not real, it's admissible," said Headmaster Denton, his face pale, and deeply concerning. Mr. Wexler rose too, red-faced and sputtering. We welcomed her into our home. "No," Taka said, stepping off the stage and walking up the aisle toward them. You welcomed her things, not her. Mrs. Wexler tried to grab her daughter's hand, but the girl pulled away. Just like that, the perfect mask crumbled. Later, outside the auditorium, I found Taka sitting on the stone steps, arms pulled around her knees. They won't be able to host again, I said, sitting beside her. They'll be blacklisted. And probably investigated. She nodded slowly. I didn't want this to destroy them, she whispered. I just wanted not to feel crazy anymore. You aren't crazy, I said gently. They were cruel. That doesn't make you weak. She looked up at me then and something shifted in her face, less burden, more breath. I kept thinking, she said, if I were louder, if I were angrier, maybe they'd have listened sooner. But today, this way, it felt right. The sun broke through the clouds for one brief moment, laying a warm strip of light across the pavement. She leaned against me. Thank you for not letting me go silent. It hit me then, the weight of what we'd done. We hadn't just exposed them. We de-reclaimed something, a sense of self, a sliver of peace. That night, Taka came back to our house with her suitcases packed. Her program had arranged a new placement, temporary until she figured out what she wanted. My parents greeted her like family. My mother made miso soup from an old recipe she dug up, mostly water and memory, and we all sat at the table, shoulders close, laughter soft. After dinner, I walked her to the guest room we had set up. She paused at the door. How do you know when it's over? She asked. I looked at her, and for once I didn't know how to answer. Maybe it isn't ever fully over. Some pain leaves fingerprints too deep to scrub. But sometimes, if you're lucky, you get to write the ending yourself. She smiled at me, and I saw the girl I'd met months ago, the sunlight in her eyes restored. And just as I turned to go, she chuckled softly and said, next time I'll bring wasabi chocolate. I laughed, the sound surprising even me. The past can't always be undone. But sometimes it can be rewritten. We left the light on in the hallway that night, just a little glow in case she needed it. In the hush of midnight, I understood something I hadn't before. Some revenge doesn't scream. It simply refuses to be silenced.